Hello, everyone. My name is Doug Alderson, and I worked for the Florida Office of Greenways and Trails for 15 and a half years, coordinating the paddling trails around the state. And also I mapped and wrote the guide for the Florida Circumnavigational Trail, which I will talk about in my presentation. I am currently the Outreach and Advocacy Director for the Apalachicola River Keeper. I started that in March. My old office was fine with me presenting this, and I will tie in some of the trails that reach down from Georgia, the paddling trails as well, at the end of my presentation. So I'm going to hand it off to Brittany, my former colleague and friend.
Hi, I'm here today to speak about Florida's vision for trails, blueways, and greenways communities. I am very excited to be here today with so many different passionate people. And we all know getting outside is important, not just to Floridians, but to all. The outdoors is where people pursue their favorite hobbies like biking, walking, wildlife viewing. It also helps to conserve our habitat and save our endangered species. So I'm going to start at the foundation, and that is within the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. We have the Division of Recreation and Parks. And within that division, we have our Florida State Parks, which manages 175 of our award-winning state parks. And then another major responsibility of the division is outdoor recreation. Now, within that is where the Office of Greenways and Trails is charged with two plans, the statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan and our Florida Greenways and Trails system plan. So we're going to dive a little bit into both of those. So within our statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, also known as SCORP, this was put in place due to the population growth to make sure that we're aware of Florida's vision for outdoor recreation is from our Floridians, as well as based off of the land and water conservation funding. To receive that funding, you must have a document that states what the vision of Florida is for the state. So the SCORP also ensures Florida's eligibility to receive federal grant money from the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and that money is then distributed to local governments to acquire and develop recreational lands and facilities. So we have the responsibility to study and appraise the recreational need of the state and to assemble and disseminate information pertaining to the recreation, as well as find opportunities to partner with folks. But that is statewide. It is put together in this plan every 5 years. Within that, we have what is known as our Florida Outdoor Recreation Inventory. So this currently has 14,000 sites. This consists of all recreational opportunities in the state of Florida, not just our state parks. So we get this information from our partners. And this inventory consists of resource-based as well as user-oriented outdoor recreation. So within that, that's where we break up the needs. It breaks up the current inventory of recreation in Florida and singles out all the different types of recreation. And within that, we are able to provide what is known as Outdoor Florida, and it is a website as well as an application where you can identify different resource-based outdoor recreation public land opportunities. So within that, you can download the app, find where you would like to go to a trail, and it will tell you where to go. We also, in 2013, did a study that was the overall economic impact of outdoor recreation opportunities in Florida. So within that, it broke down the visitor and resident spending in counties and statewide. It also shows how many jobs were supported in each of these areas and how much tax revenue was generated from outdoor recreation. This is a very useful document to have and to be familiar with. So SCORP covers the vision for statewide outdoor recreation. One of our partners, also known as the Florida Recreation and Parks Association, covers the user-oriented recreation. This well-established partnership and organization provides services to communities across the state, such as senior adult programming, child care programs, aquatic facilities, swimming lessons, exercise programs, golf courses, dog parks, youth and adult athletic programs. Whereas we cover the resource-based outdoor recreation, which entails hiking and biking and other outdoor activities. So to accomplish this, the Greenways and Trails has been given the responsibility of leading, planning, and facilitating the development of an interconnected Florida Greenways and Trails system. This takes a coordinated effort with state and local partners to compile local trail data from cities, counties, and other land managing entities in one inclusive system. Depicting the trails data on a statewide map helps identify where connections can be made across jurisdictional boundaries. The statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan is the state's official document regarding outdoor recreation planning. Because the Greenways and Trails plan substantially contributes to the identification and implementation of outdoor recreation, it serves as an essential state-level companion to the SCORP. To implement the Florida Greenways and Trails system, DEP recognizes Florida state parks and trails not only a complement, but help complete the network. Our Greenways and Trails act as an intricate natural and human behavior, both paved and unpaved. Trails and greenways tie communities together by linking features such as parks, open spaces, historic sites, and residential areas. Non-motorized trails and waterways provide places for paddlers, bicyclists, hikers, walkers, and horseback riders. It allows them to experience the natural and cultural wonders of our state. So by doing so, we reach out to our local city and county regional planning entities, as well as private partners and the public to help us identify and prioritize opportunities for partnership in the implementation of a statewide system. We coordinate more than 5,500 miles of existing and priority land trails and more than 4,000 miles of paddling trails, which Doug will follow up with later. We do this to plan and promote and provide outdoor recreation opportunities through a network of trails, access, and information. So within our Florida Greenways and Trails system, we identify what is known as our priority network. And within that, we break it down even further into our regional trails, which as you can see on the map. And these regional trails are long distance or loop trail systems that cross multiple jurisdictions, and they're compiled shorter individual trails or local segments that are linked together to form a more unique, expansive system. A regional trail can provide a multi-day experience for more ambitious trail users as well. So both the SCORP document as well as the Florida Greenways and Trails System Plan, you can find both of those on our website where the link is listed above. Now let's talk some Reconomics. You all have seen the recent Outdoor Industry Association figures that nationally outdoor recreation is worth $887 billion and supports 7.6 million jobs. That's huge. And the numbers are growing. So outdoor recreation is big. So within the SCORP plan, the study was broken down by state, regional, county level, and even by activities. It was broken down into 4 categories: the accommodations, food, durable gear, fees, and incidentals. Any trail, long or short, is an economic asset to a community. The Florida Outdoor Recreation Economy Report by the outdoor industry is where we received some of these numbers, where it showed that we received $70 billion in visitor spending, as well as $60 billion in spending occurred in parks and on plans, as well as 1.2 million jobs that were supported. So within one of our Florida regional trail systems, which is known as the Coast to Coast, a section of it which consists of the West Orange Trail, Little Econ, and Katy Way Trail, which is located in Orange County. It shows after a regional study was done by the East Central Florida Regional Planning Council back in 2011, it showed that it supported 516 jobs, an annual economic impact of 42.6 million, and supported 61 jobs in downtown Winter Garden. So it's amazing what trails can do for a community. It costs money to build these trails, and the trail itself does not bring you the economic benefit of it. What it is the community that supports it. So a colleague of mine had attended an American Trails conference and saw where they were creating these towns that supported the trail. So after years of studying and doing research, the office came up with what's known as the Florida Trail Town. So it's a program that recognizes communities where trails lead to success. It is called the Florida Trail Town Program. It is available to communities that are close to the trail. And the whole idea behind the program is that people using the trail can visit connected communities and enjoy the services there. People using the trail might venture into restaurants, grocery stores, local shops, and even lodging. So the goals for the program were to enhance the quality of the trail experience, promote tourism and growth of Florida's trails, increase the amount and frequency of Florida's trail users, boost the economy from purchases from trail users, and engage citizens through community participation. And our program goals are to develop educational tools for working groups based on lessons learned to help establish successful regional trails. Currently, we have 11 designated trail towns. So to date, 16 states have created an Office of Outdoor Recreation, task force, or policy advisors to serve as the state lead in bolstering economic development and the outdoor recreation economy. They're also promoting health and wellness, ensuring conservation and stewardship of public lands and water. By doing this, another area, after looking at what other states were doing, we're currently focusing on the promotion to stakeholders and the public are the benefits of health and wellness and outdoor recreation. Currently, only 36 of Floridians are at a healthy weight, but enhanced access combined with informational outreach can increase frequency of physical activity. One study showed a 48% increase in physical activity itself. So we started doing research and working with different other states on what they were doing and started finding the benefits of health benefits of outdoor recreation. We found, according to the Journal of Experimental Psychology, being outdoors and walking gives us energy, makes us happy, helps us to relieve the everyday stresses, our overscheduled lives, it opens the doors to creativity and helps us to be kind to others. It also helps with the benefit of healthy aging. We found that every dollar spent on walking paths saves $3 in medical expenses. As well as the green exercise effect, which is the color green makes exercise feel easier and people are more likely to exercise more often. We also found that, according to the American Journal of Public Health, people who live near safe, high-quality biking and walking infrastructure tend to get more exercise than people who don't. And so here is a compiled list of the health benefits of getting outdoors. It can reduce risk of falling, improve balance and joint mobility, extends years of active life, and helps with loneliness as well. And with all the information we found, we compiled them into fact sheets for distribution. We're still currently working on poster samples, as well as social media messages and sample PowerPoints. That way they can be used, these sample messages and graphics, to reach older adults, parents, and professionals. That way they're easily adaptable with different events and priorities. We're also hoping they will be distributed at healthcare settings, recreation facilities, schools, and workplaces, as well as community centers and local officials. So help us spread the word about the health and wellness benefits of being outdoors. Use our tools and resources to promote in your area. And next, I would like to on establishing and promoting paddling trails and Blueway system. Here is Doug Alderson.
Okay, thank you, Brittany. So now I'm going to focus a little more in detail on the paddling trails. Brittany covered all the many non-motorized trails in Florida, and the paddling trails are something that I've been involved with for a long time in Florida, most of my life. I first started canoeing here when I was a teenager, and now I do mostly kayaking. But the Office of Greenways and Trails coordinates 68 designated paddling trails. So basically, some of these were grandfathered in from the 70s from the legislature, and many of these, about half, were added on in the last 10 years or so. And they go through a designation process where a local government or a county or sometimes a group will nominate a paddling trail, and it goes to the Greenways and Trails Council, which is appointed by the different bodies such as the governor and the legislature and different agencies. It's 20 people, and they vote on whether to designate a trail, a state designated paddling trail. And so They're all over the state, as you can see, and they cover a wide variety of waterways, from saltwater to lakes to rivers, tidal creeks. And you can see that Florida has a huge number of paddling opportunities. Florida is a very wet state. So if you look at the coastline, the miles of rivers, the number of lakes, there are many more opportunities for designated paddling trails in the state. So I got the opportunity to map out and write the guide for the Florida Saltwater Paddling Trail. And this was conceived after Maine completed their trail. A man named David Gluckman saw the Maine trail, and he said, well, Florida has more coastline than Maine, and it almost makes a circumnavigation around the state. So he came up with the idea, and he put it in a bill. It passed legislature, and so the Office of Greenways and Trails had to figure out how to do this trail in a state of about 20 million people. How can you camp out in a few places, stay in motels around the entire state of Florida? Well, it can be done, and a few hardy people do the trail every year. Many of those people gather for 3 days. Greenways and Trails coordinates with the Florida Paddling Trails Association, which was set up really to support the trail and other trails around the state about 12 years ago. So during this gathering, we recognize those who have completed the trail. People that want to do the trail usually show up and try to gain information. And people that are in progress, some people do the trail in segments over several years, such as right in the middle of this family is doing the trail right now over about 8 years. By this time, most of the kids will be in high school or college when they finish. And the office also coordinates twice a year a 3-day paddle sports training in Central Florida. It's just a way to really enhance the safety of those getting out in the water. Each one of the graduates of this course can basically lead trips around the state and lead trips in state parks, and also increases the volunteer base of trained leaders in the state park system. So why paddling trails? Well, those of you who are familiar with paddling trails know that they create great destinations. They're great for physical fitness, environmental awareness, conservation stewardship, and they also are a big boost to the economies of the local governments. So according to the study that Brittany cited, paddling produces about $3 billion a year gross in the state of Florida each year during an average tourist year. That's pretty amazing. And you'll see some of the figures for other uses in the state as well. So it ranks up there in the top 5. And health, look at the different calories that can be burned depending on the size person doing 1 hour of rowing, sculling, or kayaking or canoeing. So if you are interested in creating a paddling trail, some things to keep in mind. I'm going to go over a few guidelines. A lot of people are pretty casual paddlers. They're not the hardcore paddlers. Probably the majority of people are this way. They want trails that are probably 3 to 6 miles in length. They want an interesting destination or some point of interest that they can maybe stop at, take some photos. It could be an historic site. It could be a restaurant. It could be any number of things. It could be a geologic feature like a bluff. If there's a loop trail opportunity, that's even better. They don't have to do a shuttle and leave a vehicle. And to figure out how long it might take to do a trail, most trails for the average paddler take about 2 miles an hour. So you can judge, a 6-mile trail, you might say it takes 2.5 to 3 hours to do this trail. The long distance trails, that's more for the experienced people, and there are a group of that, so you have to accommodate those folks as well, like the circumnavigational trail paddlers. So in planning a trail, just who is the target user and what skill level? So if it's a small lake, obviously that's good for beginners. If it's the coast of Florida, obviously that's more for the experienced paddlers. So in this certain area, ask for input from the clubs and outfitters and try to gauge from the different clubs, what do the paddlers really need in that area? What are they looking for? And it's important to really put a lot of safety into the trails, look at areas with a lot of boat traffic. recruit experienced paddlers to share the knowledge, because if I'm coming from Tallahassee, I may not know that area in South Florida. So it's good to recruit experienced people to really share their local knowledge of the waterway. As a coastal area, it's good to know the different tides. Will this area be a mudflat and low tide? That's good to know. This photo, by the way, was when I was studying the circumnavigational trail with a friend. We were actually lost and we had to stand up. We went down a tidal creek and it went into a dead end. So we had to stand up in the marsh and figure out our way out to find the actual channel. So then we took some GPS points. And so now it's in the map to where people shouldn't get lost the same way we did. It was a scenic spot, however. Describing conditions is important, and any potential hazards. Is there very open water to where certain winds will create a problem? We call that fetch. Are there hazards like oyster bars and different things, rocks, that could cause a hazard? At low water in the river, are there shoals present? These are the type of things to mention. It's good to put in if there's a gauge for the USGS water gauges for the river. At what point is that water level maybe too low for safe paddling, or maybe too high for safe paddling, such as during flood stage? And it's good to include information about universal accessibility. If you are putting in a launch, consult with experts on what is accessible for someone in a wheelchair, for example. It doesn't always have to be a place with lots of concrete. You can sometimes put natural things in like rocks that basically help with staging areas. So we consulted with a group for many years to teach a class on universal accessibility for paddling trails. It's very successful. If you're not in charge of the launches, it's good to describe the launches. Are they very steep? Is it something that someone in a wheelchair could access or not? It's good to put that in the guide. And management's very important. The Greenways and Trails inherited several trails. Basically, they were grandfathered in, that they are not in charge of managing that trail. They don't have field staff to do so. So it's important to have new trails that a manager has identified. If there's a big storm and there's blockages, who is the person to contact? What managing entity will clear those blockages and maintain any signage or facilities? Mapping, there's so many different types of maps. There's aerial photos. There's different types of ArcGIS type maps. It's probably better not to produce big poster maps because they don't fit very well in a map bag or a kayak. So it's good to have user-friendly, water-resistant type maps if you have paper maps, or maps that you can print out and someone can put them in a waterproof container in a kayak, because a lot of times those maps go right in front of them on top of their dry bag. And these are some of the features to include in the maps. And it's important to get the symbology correct and keep it consistent, and see what maybe some other states or other entities are using for their symbols. And sharing some of the emergency contact information, distances between different sites. All these are important. And some areas are so remote you do not have a signal for certain phones. And maybe this should be mentioned as well. People rely too heavily sometimes on their smartphones, and sometimes they need to just rely on a map and maybe a GPS system. And when I was doing the circumnavigation trail, some of the other trails, I received a couple calls saying all of your GPS points are not correct. That's because the people did not know how to change their GPS system to decimal degrees, is what we were using on all our maps. There are many different types of putting in the decimal degrees or decimal degrees minutes and different things. So you need to state that clearly on your maps. What are you using? And they need to go in the settings and make sure the GPS unit is following that. Otherwise, you might get a phone call because they are all incorrect. It will not show up correctly if they are in the wrong setting. Longer trails, it's good to describe camping opportunities, any available motels, restaurants, link to certain sites such as tourist development sites, and try to avoid endorsing certain businesses, but maybe link to a Chamber of Commerce site or a tourist development site that lists many different choices for people. And it's good to test the results. If you've developed the paddling trail, don't just publish it. Maybe invite some paddlers to go out and ground truth the trail. Maybe get some people that are more in the beginner category, see if they can follow the map and follow the guide, and then enlist their feedback. And as I mentioned, it's important to link to, if possible, to different websites that don't really just endorse a certain business or outfitter. Link to one that covers many of these businesses. And they can keep these websites updated and you don't have to do that. And it's good to follow the low impact principles for camping. We don't want to overuse areas. We don't want to create too much of an impact. List maybe how large a campsite is. It would fit maybe 8 people, but not 15. That type of information is very important. And some of the amenities you can list too. There's some places there's storage for kayaks where you can lock up your kayak, especially if you're in certain state parks. You might be taking a shuttle bus to the camping area away from your kayak, so you want to lock up your kayak. It's a big issue for overnight parking for people. They want to know if their vehicle will be safe. They leave the vehicle for 1 or 7 nights or however long they're going out on a trip. There's so many different types of launches, and I encourage you to look on the internet for some good software. There's good websites that feature different types of launches depending on the situation. Marking a waterway, it's probably easier to mark things by land. If you try to put signs in the waterway, you have to go through a permitting system, usually with the U.S. Coast Guard and with the state. And there's often a high maintenance and high cost for this as well. So usually most trails now are being marked mostly with GPS coordinates on a map, and signs may be on the land, but not in the water itself. Promoting the trail is important too. You've created this trail, but are people just going to magically find it? So how are you going to advertise that trail? And so a variety of ways besides websites, social media, planning events, all these things can help publicize your trail. One pet peeve I have is that most of the photos, the people need to wear life jackets, promote safety that way. I've seen a lot of videos and people engaged in the activities, they're often beginners, but they are not wearing a life jacket. So this is essential safety information. Plan a celebration kickoff event if your trail has been designated, or it's along the waterway, it's a trail town, or some other reason to create a celebration to highlight the paddling trail. And it's great to mark the trail at the beginning and ending points. These are the markers for the circumnavigational trail. We came up with the idea of cutting a kayak in half and placing one half at one end and the other half at the other end. So basically, these markers are 1,500 miles apart. And so you can start on the top end, the bow end, and end at the stern end of the same kayak. Once you've created a trail, you can seek National Recreation Trail designation. So this is a natural step, and it's not a hard thing to do, and it gives you extra PR and another reason to have a celebration of your trail. They usually announce the designations around June 1st, National Trails Day each year. And these are just examples. They have these events or festivals. We've calculated some of the benefits of having some of these festivals in different areas. They can be a great impact to a small town when you have 200 people show up for an event for a weekend. And so they highlight the trail, and often these people come back on their own time to the trail. And there are also group trips. I know in Georgia they have Paddle Georgia. In Florida they have Paddle Florida. And these are great groups to invite to highlight your trail. And they can often expose lots of people to your area that have never been there before. And they come from all over the United States. These are often people that have some disposable income as well. So I'm going to get into, since I'm with the Apalachicola Riverkeeper, one event that we do is called the River Trek. We do a kayak trip on the entire Apalachicola River from the top to the bottom. It's 106 miles. We take 5 days, and we also raise funds. So each paddler raises funds from friends and relatives and businesses, and it's turned into our biggest fundraiser for the group. We raise over $60,000 a year. We have for the last several years. And some of the Apalachicola River features the largest geologic structure outcropping in Florida, which is Allen Bluff. It's over 100 feet above the water, and you would feel like you're not in Florida. This is an incredible place, and we camp across the bluff and watch the sunset splash across the bluff. Just gorgeous. There's a lot of birds and wildlife along any trail along the Apalachicola. These are avocets. On the second day of River Trek, we saw these last year. And the camping on the river is on sandbars. And this year we have 13 people paddling. We're going to spread out. These sandbars are very large, and so we feel that's very safe. Everybody can spread out over a sandbar that may be 200 yards long. We often have speakers, so we try to educate the paddlers on the journey. And we have one person that brings different reptiles. We have a state park biologist talking about the plants and some of the history of certain areas. We have an online speaker this year talking about the geology of the area. So we try to educate the paddlers as they go, and oftentimes they become committed more to the river and the resource. They become more involved with the Apalachicola River Keeper as a result. Here's a scene it's an educational opportunity. It's very visual, but this was a 3-story sand dune created by the Army Corps of Engineers for their dredging many years ago. So it's a beautiful view. On the other hand, it's a result of their dredging, which caused a lot of harm to the river environment. So it's a good educational opportunity. And we take lots of breaks, and it's fun, and it's kind of like summer camp for adults. A lot of swim breaks, a lot of paddling, and it's a reward for them raising so much money for the group as well. So it's something they will never forget. If you want to know more about River Trek, you can go on our website, but also we brought along a WFSU, our local public television station, came along with us and did several blogs on River Trek over the several years, and so you can find these at the website below. Very well done. And this is our website. You can find information about different trails in the region, as well as different trips that we have every month. So the Apalachicola River is pretty unique in that its origins are in the mountains of the Appalachians. There's actually a gap on the Appalachian Trail called Chattahoochee Gap, and that is the beginning of the Chattahoochee River, goes through Georgia, and it joins with the Flint River, and it forms the Apalachicola River. So really, most of the larger basin really is in Georgia. So we're very dependent on the water coming from Georgia, and that's created many issues over time. So we have many opportunities to connect with the folks in Georgia for paddling trails besides the Apalachicola River and that whole system. We have the Ochlockonee River. We have the Osceola River. These are near Tallahassee. And the Suwannee Basin, you see this huge area of Georgia feeds the Suwannee River and the Okefenokee Swamp, which is one of our most scenic rivers in Florida. The St. Mary's River basically hugs the Georgia border with Florida for over 100 miles from the Okefenokee Swamp to the Atlantic Ocean. And also the Saltwater Paddling Trail, when we finished our trail around the state, the National Park Service said, hey, why don't we continue this trail through the southeast? And so this trail continues through Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, on up into Virginia. So look this up on Google, Southeast Coast Saltwater Paddling Trail, and you'll have many, many opportunities to paddle on the coast of Georgia by going on the maps, seeing the maps and the guide for this trail.